Welcome to Hanshaw's Horizon, where we explore learning science, evidence-based tools, and strategies to build better learning environments and simply help people learn better. Now, keep in mind, in this series, we're diving into one strategy at a time, when in reality, multiple strategies are needed to create a high-performance learning environment. This week, we're exploring Sarah Cavanaugh's research and thoughts on the intersection of emotion and learning. Emotions play a huge role in our learning. Emotion literally determines how we perceive our world. Our emotions play a role in organizing our memory and how we make important decisions. So if you've ever heard anyone say, don't make an emotional decision, that's wise advice, because our emotion can and does affect our perception of that moment. So think about that statement for a minute. Do you remember a time when you made a poor decision because of your emotional state? Have you ever had your amygdala hijacked? The amygdala hijack is when your brain's emergency response center, the amygdala, it's going to react instantly to a threat, making you respond impulsively with either strong emotions of fear or anger before your thinking brain, the cortex, can catch up and assess the situation. So I imagine this happened to all of us in some form, but that's a topic for another day. Let's take a look at emotion from a perspective of learning. There's many types of emotion, and Dr. Sarah Cavanaugh calls emotion the spark of learning. We know that emotions are powerful and they shape the way we create memories and perceive the world. So I think we've all experienced times of happiness or sadness where we experience similar events but perceive them quite differently. So let's start thinking of emotion in terms of learning. So we're going to zoom out for a moment and think about emotions that help us connect to content that we're trying to learn. When we make an emotional connection with the content, it sticks better. Remember when we talked about how emotions play a large role in shaping our memories and how it shapes our perceived world? Well, curiosity is one of those emotions that really shapes our memories and helps learning stick. So take a moment to think about a learning experience that kind of piqued your curiosity. Did the content stick with you? I've been fortunate to have several of these experiences. One of my favorite was from my high school physics class. My teacher had a laser set up in a classroom. It was large. It was almost the size of a telescope at that time. And we were on the third floor, and we had a target set up on a baseball field below. And he allowed us to shoot the laser at the target on the baseball field. And that was simply amazing to me. I remember it today that a laser stands for light amplification by the stimulated emission of radiation. And I also remember the basics about how a laser works. But trust me, there's people out there with a lot more knowledge than I do about lasers, so I don't want to misspeak on the topic. What's really cool is that the environment of curiosity that my teacher created caused the content to stick. One thing that's interesting, fast forward 20 years from high school, when I worked in aerospace, I worked on a project with an engineer who was using lasers and fiber optics to transfer data, and I had the same peak of curiosity when I started on that project. So did that emotion of curiosity cause that? Probably did, because I felt it. Now, I imagine you have a story similar to this on a topic that you enjoy, but the bottom line is when we create that environment of curiosity, it helps the learning stick. And how we use this as a professor, instructor, instructional designer, how we create this within ourselves so we can harness that power of emotion when we want to learn something. So how do we use this as a professor or instructional designer? How do we create this within ourselves so we can harness that power of emotion when we want to learn something? Well, as a professor or instructor, you can utilize emotions such as curiosity, empathy, and inspiration to create meaningful courses where the content sticks with the learner. Design your lessons and activities to ignite curiosity, surprise, joy, and there's many strategies that can kindle a learner's feelings towards the content. The critical element is to do something really unexpected and grow that curiosity. So creating activities that evoke emotion lets you kindle the spark of learning that Dr. Cavanaugh emphasizes. So here's some simple ways that you can utilize emotion in your classroom. And you can do this regardless of the modality, whether it's online, face-to-face, hybrid, whatever. So the first thing is create interactive, collaborative learning environment. by incorporating group activities, debates, discussions, facilitating emotional connections with peers, and enhancing learning. Like within the debate, require learners to empathize or understand other perspectives that do not align with their position. So creative and intellectual friction are the hallmarks of a high-performing learning environment. The high-performing learning environment is a topic we're going to cover in depth because it's probably the most crucial aspect of learning, but we'll do that on a later blog and vlog. As a professor, you can also use storytelling to evoke emotions like curiosity, empathy, inspiration, which fosters a learner's emotional investment in the subject and creates that powerful learning experience. Like my son had a teacher who used stories quite often, and he still remembers them today, several years later, and offer feedback to students where you purposely attempt to create curiosity. This means you give perspective on other options within your feedback. Now we'll dive in on how to give excellent feedback in my next blog on how to use deliberate practice for education and training. Let's take a look at the designer perspective. How can we use emotion to design curiosity, empathy, excitement, and inspiration? And you have many unique and powerful strategies to call upon to help your learners grow their curiosity, heighten their sense of awe and discovery, and challenge them to make that emotional connection to the content. So here's some ways that we can engage learners with emotion by design. So keep in mind that when you design with emotion in mind, you also help the instructor to make connections with the learners as well. One of the obvious ways to do this is using multimedia, visual aids, interactive content. Now, we've all been subjected to those incredibly boring courses. You know the ones that you feel like your soul's being taken from your body. Compliance courses with forced acting comes immediately to my mind. So layer in adult learning theory with your interactive content and make it relevant and meaningful. Provide opportunities for self-reflection and introspection. And when you do this, this enables learners to explore and better understand their emotions in connection with the learning process. You also want to give learners control. That is a great perspective. You want to build in moments of surprise, delight, challenge, which engage the learners emotionally and foster a sense of achievement and personal growth. I created a scavenger hunt for a class that had several clues hidden all over the campus. The final clue was about Fresnel reflection. And it basically had the learners look out a window and notice that they could see a faint reflection of themselves from the window. And Fresnel reflection is basically the part of the image that reflects from that surface, the window surface, which I learned about from my work with fiber optics and lasers with that engineering team. So isn't it kind of funny how when we make that emotional connection with content, we constantly revisit it in creative ways? Now, the goal of the scavenger hunt was to get the learners to see the reflection and then understand that as a leader, anything that is happening within their team is their responsibility, but if they micromanage all the situations, they would fail as a leader. The idea was that they needed to be present enough and share their level of presence needed to adjust as they got closer and further from the issue. So the activity stuck with the learners because it was different from what they were used to. And they all enjoyed it, and the clues were dumb, but they had a great time, and it really stuck for years later. Now, you can also create opportunities for students to experience the pleasure of problem solving, success, self-reflection, which promotes an emotional connection to the content, thereby unlocking that deeper understanding. At Los Angeles Pacific University, we use the know, feel, do framework with our learning and design model. So we use the LAPU learning model and the know, feel, do framework. As a learner, if you want to learn quicker and make the learning stick better, there's many ways that we can do that as well. So the first one is set personal goals. And your personal goals create a sense of purpose, ambition, and motivation. If you read my blog on deliberate practice that'll be coming out shortly, you know that goal setting also connects to deliberate practice. So you can also practice mindfulness and self-awareness. This enables you to identify, label, and navigate these emotions that arise during your learning journey and connect deeper with the content. And also actively seek and incorporate feedback to generate a sense of accountability and that cultivate that emotional resilience. This connects with my previous blogs and a future blog on grit. So just remember that emotions aren't just feeling, they're key players in how we learn. And Sarah Cavanaugh's idea that emotions are the spark in learning really drives this home. So whether you're an instructor, designer, or learner, embracing this emotional connection can take your learning journey to the next level. So dive deep into emotional learning and let's transform every lesson into a passionate adventure of growth. So until next time, just keep feeling, keep learning.